Welcome, folks, to the Divorce Do's and Don'ts show. I'm Lisa Decker, your host, certified divorce financial analyst, real estate collaboration specialist in divorce, and certified amicable divorce professional. I am going to share my screen with you here. We're going to show you some things. If we can get this to work, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties this morning, but I think we're going to get this done now. So bear with me 1 second. Here we go. And you should see my screen. Only this little black screen at the bottom is in the way. I can't get to play this. Oh, my goodness. Technology, boy, it's wonderful when
Are you considering divorce? Are you dealing with it now? Are you on the other side and not sure what comes next? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Divorce Do's and Don'ts show with your host, Lisa C. Decker.
Well, we got that going. Great story.
Right.
Okay, Jeff, it is so nice to have you here today. We are going to talk about real estate and divorce, but let me tell you about Jeff before we do, folks, because we've got a really special guest here today. Jeff Landers is a seasoned real estate, mortgage, and divorce expert with over 40 years of combined experience. He earned his BA in psychology and studied law at Pace University School of Law before becoming a divorce financial advisor. He's also, like myself, a CDFA, and I was very lucky to have Jeff mentor me for a bit when I first got into this work. And recently, he has become a certified divorce lending professional, and he is a licensed real estate and mortgage broker. So he founded Bedrock Divorce Advisors in 2010, and he's helped hundreds and hundreds of clients. Now he is doing he has founded Next Act Properties, which provides real estate and mortgage solutions for divorcing and divorced people. He has written and published 7 books with over 15,000 copies sold nationwide, focusing on the marital home and the financial aspects of divorce. And he has contributed as a regular contributor to Forbes.com and the Huffington Post, along with others. He's a regular TV contributor, and we are just really, really lucky to have you here today. We're going to talk a little bit about Jeff's 7th and latest book, Divorce House Sense. Can you keep your marital home, or will you have to sell? And you can find that on Amazon. And so, Jeff, I want to welcome you here today. We got a lot to talk about, and you've got so much knowledge. We are really blessed to have you as an expert. So let's just dive right in. What are the 3
Thank you for the intro.
Oh, of course. I'm so excited. I'm talking right over here. So I want to get right to the meat of the matter, because there's so much to talk about when it comes to divorce and real estate, right? People don't have a lot of ideas of what goes on internally in the work that we do, and understand that your divorce attorney may not as well. So it's vitally critical that you, if you're getting divorced or dealing with divorce coming up, that you understand these things prior to signing on the dotted line, because some things you cannot undo.
Exactly.
So jumping in here, Jeff, let's start talking about this. What are the 3 options that people need to consider from the get-go?
Well, there are typically 3 things to do with the marital home. The obvious one is you sell it, divide the proceeds after all, selling expenses, and each party goes on its way. Unfortunately, many divorce attorneys recommend that because it's kind of the easiest option. Just, get rid of it, take the proceeds, go buy something smaller, whatever. But in many cases, one spouse, often the woman, especially if they're minor children, would like to keep the home. There's emotional attachments. Divorce is traumatic enough for the children. Having to move, take them out of school, away from their friends. A lot of people, women don't want to do that. So the question is, if you want to keep the home, can you qualify? One, you would have to buy out the leaving spouse's share of the home equity. And two, in most cases, you're going to have to refinance the mortgage in your own name because the spouse that's leaving doesn't want to keep the obligation of the existing mortgage. And there are many, many, many requirements that lending, mortgage lenders have that most people and most divorce attorneys are not aware of, and that becomes an issue. So bringing in, just as as CDFAs, you would advise clients, bring us in as early as possible because that's where we could do the most good and understand what's going on. It's the same thing bringing in a mortgage and real estate expert. Why spend months and months and thousands in legal expenses negotiating to keep the home, going through, adding all the paperwork to the, settlement agreement, only to find out you don't qualify for a mortgage? Better to know that up front.
Absolutely.
Okay, figure out what your options are, and then if you have to sell, you sell. But at least know from the beginning whether it's reality or just a pipe dream. And especially now that mortgage rates have more than doubled in the last year, what was affordable a year ago could be costing another $1,000 a month, and you're just out of the money.
Right. So much in there that we can talk about.
Oh, absolutely.
One of the things that I see is that if people come early, like you said, they have more options available to them. Once you get further along into the process and you start agreeing on some other things, you may take some of those options away. Also, a lot of times when I work with CDLPs, and I'm sure you do this as well, Jeff, that we can back into the numbers needed.
Exactly. Right.
You want to buy out your spouse's equity and keep the house. So
Right.
that, we know how much child support, how much alimony, so that you can qualify. And that's typically not the way that it's done in traditional divorce matters. That's, people are told, okay, you want to keep the house, go and refinance it in the next 18 months. And they may not be able to. So now they've got to go back to court and open things up because it wasn't set up properly to begin with. And it's not that the ex-spouse doesn't want to do it. It's not an option because it wasn't looked at prior to. And,
And what I see many times, Lisa, is in the divorce or marital settlement agreements, the attorney will put in, you have 90 or 120 days to refinance, otherwise the house has to be sold up. Well, the reality is, if you're depending in whole or part on child support or alimony, one of the requirements is that the alimony and child support, both of them separately, need to have been received for 6 months prior, consistently and on time, before you even apply. And then it has to continue for 36 months thereafter. So in many states where the age of emancipation for a child is 18, if your kid is 16 years old, you've only got 2 years of child support. I don't care if you're getting $100,000 a month, it's not going to count from a lender's point of view. And that's often a big mistake. So bringing us in early to know these facts ahead of time, there are ways to get around that. Maybe you for the next 42 months or whatever, you get more in alimony to cover that difference. And then it goes down afterwards to give you enough time to, to qualify for the mortgage. The other thing is there's a type of buyout mortgage called a rate term, which gives you a much higher percentage that you could mortgage, the LTV, and it also has lower rates. But one of the requirements is that the spouse keeping the home has been on the title for at least 12 months. Okay. Now, in the state of Florida, where I'm at, that's not a problem, because if you buy something as a married couple, both spouses have to be on the title. But that's not true in every state. So that's important. Most divorces take more than 12 months to resolve. So if we know right from the beginning that the spouse that wants to keep the home is not on title, well, let's try to do that. If the other spouse obviously is cooperative, it's very, very easy to do a quitclaim deed and get the other spouse on, and that solves that problem. But if we find out 90 days or 5 months prior to the divorce being finalized, it's too late. We don't have the 12 months.
Right. Yes, and you're right. I mean, here in Georgia, that is not a requirement to get a mortgage. But I will say, even if your spouse is not on the title here in Georgia and other states like this, it's still a marital asset if it was purchased during the marriage. And there's
Absolutely.
about that. So, there's so many little details, folks, that can trip you up in divorce. And we're just talking about the house, one piece of things.
Right.
Definitely want to work with people, with professionals who have certifications in divorce, because we've gone a level above to get this knowledge so that we can make sure that these things that are missed by many don't happen to you. One other thing I want to say, Jeff, before I ask you this next question is, many of the divorce lending professionals that I've worked with ask me to do at least 48 months, because 42 months is the cutoff, right? You've got that 6-month requirement, and then you've got 36 months after that. And it takes time to close a loan. People may have to fix credit and things. So
you want that cushion. Yes, I agree. The obviously the more the better. And to err on the side of caution, because you never know what happens, and things may get delayed for whatever reason, missing paperwork, somebody gets sick. I mean, who knows what happens? So I totally agree with that. I mean, what we're talking about is the absolute minimum, that it had to be repeat for 6 months and has to continue 36 months thereafter. Now, depending what type of mortgage, whether it's FHA or Fannie or Freddie, okay, there's always the question, is it 36 months from the time of application or 36 months from the signing of the note? Big difference. It could take a couple of months between those two. So I always say, just to be on the safe side, let's make sure it's from the signing of the note, that we don't find out at the last minute, you missed it by a month.
yes. And that does happen. That does happen.
It happens, yeah.
So it's really very valuable to have this information. I'm so glad you're here sharing this.
Thank you.
Why is continuing to own, in your opinion, to continue to co-own the home post-divorce a terrible idea? I've got my own thoughts about that. But,
well, you remember that book? I used to read it to my daughters when they were little, the horrible, no good, lousy, rotten day, even in Australia, or something like that. Well, co-owning the home after divorce is a horrible, lousy, no good, rotten idea. Because the reality is, for most people, the home is either the largest asset or one of the largest assets that they own. Okay, you're getting divorced for a reason. You didn't get along. Maybe there was financial infidelity, disagreements, whatever it is. The whole purpose of divorce, besides, once you take care of the children, the custody, the visitation, and all of that, divorce is all about the money. It's all financial. Okay, if you couldn't get along, continuing to own such a large asset is problematic. What happens, 6 months after the divorce? The roof needs to be replaced. Costs 40 grand. Okay. One spouse doesn't have the money. Who's going to pay for it?
Yeah.
All the disagreements that could come. One spouse wants to sell. Let's say the out spouse, he or she has a new significant other, and that significant other says, we want to buy our own place. You've got all your money tied up. Sell the darn thing and let's move on. But the spouse that's in the house is, no, I'm not ready to sell it. Now you got a disagreement. How do you resolve that? I've worked on many cases, and I'm sure you have, where the spouses couldn't agree, or the ex-spouses, I should say, couldn't agree on who would be the real estate broker, what price to start it at, if it doesn't sell, how much to reduce it, by how much. All of those things, you run into so many issues. And what happens as you're going through the divorce attorney now has to try to cover in the settlement agreement all these potential what ifs. So now you've got 10 to 20 pages of additional legalese to try to cover every conceivable thing, which is impossible. You can't think of everything that might happen. It's costing you thousands of dollars in legal fees to create these additional 10 to 20 pages. And you're still probably going to end up with problems afterwards, especially if it's contentious. I mean, if the couple is, but I always say, if you're that amicable, why are you getting a divorce? It's, usually there's been communication problems or animosity or infidelities or whether it's financial or otherwise. So I think it's just very difficult. It's the same thing, if you own a business, do you want to continue to co-own the business post-divorce? It's usually a terrible idea. Now, I do have to say, because interest rates have gone up so much, I've had some clients that said, look, we refinance, we've got a mortgage on the home that's, under 3% right now. I can't afford to refinance it at 6.5%. We're going to continue to co-own it maybe for another year or two until mortgage rates come down. I still tell them it's a horrible, no good, lousy, rotten idea, but I get it. If that's the only way you can keep the house, if you can't qualify for a mortgage that's 6.5% interest, and that's the only way, and you don't want to take the kids out, okay, forewarned is forearmed. Okay, understand that there's the possibility that a lot of bad stuff can happen, but maybe not. But at least go in with the knowledge, knowing that all this can happen, and then make the decision, okay, we'll still continue to co-own. But both spouses have to understand they're still on the mortgage. The out spouse, okay, if the spouse keeping the home misses a payment, it dings the out spouse's credit report.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there are a lot of things to take into consideration, but they're adults, so ultimately they have to make the decision if it might work on a temporary basis. But I really don't recommend it unless really, really absolutely necessary.
I'm with you on that. I mean, I think it should be the last option, but there are situations, especially with this rate hike that's gone on.
Right.
I'm finding more and more cases where people are saying, we're going to have to delay a year or two or three. I don't like to go past a year or two if we have to at all, but
Right.
yeah, I agree with you. It's not a good idea. When you divorce your spouse, you want to divorce the house, you want to divorce your joint debts, you want to divorce everything and start off clean. And
Right.
that allows for less friction going forward. You don't want to be arguing about things that are from the past financially.
Want to untangle yourself financially. I mean, that's one of the main reasons of divorce, besides, dealing with the children. Once, like I said, once everything's taken care of, the kids, or you have adult children, it's all about the money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the legal stuff ties it all up. That puts a bow on it and makes it real. But when it comes down to it, divorce is about the children and the money and the financial aspects of it. So yes, this is good information. I will say that, in cases where we've had to, we didn't have another option, where we had to say, okay, you're going to keep the house for another few years until the last child graduates from high school, something like that, that we did talk about a list of questions and who's going to cover what. And at least we put that into the settlement language so that it could be referred back to. Just ignoring that altogether is a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely.
So at least, if you have some kind of game plan, and I was brought in on one case. I was not a part of the initial case. I was asked by an attorney to join the case when the spouses were warring after their divorce because the wife wanted to keep the house and could not afford to refinance it in the way that it was said that she would do so in the divorce settlement agreement. And it ended up costing them more in legal fees after the divorce than what they spent to get divorced the first time.
Right.
So it's tricky stuff here, but that's why you want to bring in professionals and whatever your
and there are other options, Lisa. There are now companies called equity sharing companies, where they will come in and essentially they become your partner in the house. So they'll say, okay, depending what your house is worth, I'll give you $100,000, but once you sell the home or refinance it, I want my 100,000 plus whatever. It might end up that they own 30 or 40% of the home. Every company's different. There's some that, require you to either sell or refinance within 10 years because they want their money back. Some go to 15, and I've even seen companies that'll do 30 years for that. But basically, it's like they're your silent partner. They're not telling you what to do with the house as long as you maintain it and pay the taxes. But based on the equity you have, they'll give you money up front that you might be able to use to buy out your spouse or whatever. And they become your partner. So, you have a partner. You're not going to get 100% of the home when you sell. The other option is there are companies out there that do a sale leaseback. Sale leasebacks are very, very common in commercial real estate. So, maybe you have a CVS drugstore that owns the building and the land, and they sell it to an investor that basically now owns the property, and CVS, for example, would just rent it from that landlord. Same thing now is happening in residential real estate, where you could sell the house to a company that does the sale leaseback and rent the home back for a period of years. So you no longer own the home, but you don't have to move. And if you think about how difficult divorce is, do you really want to have to start in the middle of a divorce, especially if it's contentious, packing up the house, trying to find a new place, moving? Wouldn't it be better to, sell it? This way you could divide it with your soon-to-be ex. You could do the things of a normal sale, but yet you could stay in the house for a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever. You're just a renter, but at least you get to stay in what was your home. The kids keep their friends. They stay at the same school. And maybe, just like you said, depending on the age of the kids, you do that kind of sale lease back, until the youngest child goes off to college, graduates high school or whatever. So that's another option, even if you can't refinance the home or buy out your spouse. There are options out there that you could still stay in the home for a period of time.
That's interesting. I'm not familiar with that, but I'm glad you're bringing it up. See, this is, what do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Right.
And, so, there's a necessity here. So there's companies coming out and filling those needs. That's interesting.
Exactly. I have a whole chapter in my book about, creative ways to keep the home, even if you can't, do the refi or buy out your spouse. So those are two areas that most people, I've spoken to many divorce attorneys, like, wow, I never even heard of that.
Yeah.
So,
And I like the lease back idea as well, because you're not going to be responsible for repairs. So if
no, if the roof leaks, you call the landlord.
Right. Right. There's pros and cons to it, obviously.
Always.
But, that's a wonderful option. I'm glad you brought that up here.
Absolutely.
So as we're winding down, and I can't believe we're doing that already, because this conversation is so rich and I'm enjoying this, but this show does go quickly. Why are alimony and child support, why that you receive, why not count them? Why do mortgage lenders not always count those as income? In what cases would they not?
Well, like what we spoke about before, where, you're getting child support, and in whatever state you are, the age of emancipation, the requirement to pay child support is up to the age of 18, and you have a child that's 16, that means you're only going to collect for 2 years. That's not the 36 months that lenders require. So as I said earlier, it doesn't matter if you're getting $100,000 a month, it's not going to count as income. And you might be surprised, the attorney might be surprised. What are you talking about? I'm getting thousands of dollars a month. No question I could qualify. Not if it doesn't. We call it the 636 rule. 6 months prior, 36 months thereafter. And I agreed with you what you said earlier, better 48 months to have that extra cushion in case something, goes awry. But that's really the minimum requirement. So that's why it may not count. If it comes in on an irregular basis, 1 month it's $1,000, the next month is $2,000, won't count either. or sometimes the spouse paying, let's say they're paying $3,000 a month in alimony, and they say, you know what, this month I'm only going to give you 2,000, but the other 1,000 I'm going to pay the mortgage. Okay, the clock starts all over. It
Oh
has
my
to be,
gosh.
yes, it has to be the same amount, consistent and on time. Now, which is another reason to bring somebody right in from the beginning. You want the clock to start, so you want, the spouse that's going to keep the home to start receiving temporary support. Okay, even if it's much less than what the permanent support, okay, you have to start the 6-month clock.
Okay. I was
Now
just going
that's
to
not,
ask you that about the amount. Does it matter if it changes?
yeah, in most cases, no, it doesn't, but you need to start the clock. The problem you run in sometimes, and I've had that in many cases, and I'm sure you have, is where the attorney said, look, he's paying, if it's, the man that's paying, he's paying the mortgage, he's paying all the expenses. Don't rock the boat and ask for, temporary support. All the bills are being paid right now.
Mhm.
There's a lot of sense to that, but you're not going to start the clock, so you're going to run into other issues if the spouse receiving that support wants to keep the home.
There's so much to talk about here, and I know we have some questions from our audience, and
Oh,
let's see if we can answer one of those while we're here, because this may be helpful to folks. So bear with me again here.
sure.
This person says, with real estate in a liquidity quagmire, can't afford to move with higher rates. Portable mortgages would be an ideal way to get things moving again. As I understand it, portable loans are rare in the US. Is that correct? And if so, why? The industry wants to keep the origination fees flowing. What do you know about that, Joe?
About portable mortgages?
Yeah.
Um, I never heard of a portable mortgage.
Yeah, it
I,
sounds
I
like it's
mean,
outside
I'm
the US.
wondering if they're meaning something comparable to an assumable mortgage. And the government mortgages are assumable, like an FHA or a VA loan are assumable, provided that the person assuming it can still qualify.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there are cases where you have it, but conventional mortgages, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, those type of mortgages typically are not assumable, and you could understand why. Why wouldn't the bank want to knock up the rate from 3% to 6.5%? But the government loans, because it's subsidized and for a lot of reasons for affordable housing and whatever, they are assumable. It's a little bit complicated with
Yeah.
the VA loans, but
Different apparently, from what this gentleman's asking. He says you take the mortgage with you to the new property. Europe apparently uses this. I'm not
yeah,
familiar with it either, so but
yeah.
it's like a pretty good idea. But it would throw the mortgage industry on its head, so probably why it's not going on here in the United States right now. But it's an interesting idea. Well, Jeff, I want to give you a second here to wrap things up and go ahead and tell people how they can find you. I want to thank you again for being a guest.
Well,
It's been a wonderful show.
they could get my book on Amazon, Divorce House Sense, Kindle or paperback. They can reach me at landers@nextactproperties.com. I mean, as far as originating mortgages, I'm only licensed in the state of Florida and Colorado, although I can give advice anywhere. And I'm also a CDFA as well. So I mean, I'm happy to help people with whatever issues they may have related to the marital home. As you said earlier, the home is just one cog in the wheel of finances, but it's often the largest asset. So I think helping people determine what to do with the home makes sense, and do it as soon as possible. In the divorce process, find out what your options are, and as you very correctly said, let's work backwards to see what you need and then to make it happen. And you need the help of a CDFA as well, because there are a lot of other financial assets that could be used for a buyout or
Exactly. Yeah, we
yeah.
didn't get into that, you
Yeah,
know.
there's something called the asset depletion mortgage where, other financial assets can be used in lieu of having income. And especially when you're dealing with older people, the so-called gray divorce, where they may not have an income coming in, and
Right.
you might be able to use their assets in lieu of income. So there's so much, that we could talk about in that respect.
And sometimes just offsetting against other assets, but there's got to be
Absolutely.
other assets to cover that equity portion. So
Right, of
this
course.
is very complicated, folks. That's why you need to get professionals who are specialists in divorce, helping you with the different aspects of whatever types of assets and liabilities that you're dealing with. Jeff, it's been wonderful having you here today. We're going to wrap
Thank
up
you
the
so
show.
much.
You are very welcome. So I'm going to go back and share this and bear with me one second, folks. There it is. I'm getting a little bit better at this each week. So here we go. Well, I guess we're not going as fast as I thought we would. Oh, Lordy, help me. It's just too many things for one person to try and connect with here. I am in the search for a new assistant, but you know what? I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to wrap up the show here myself. I am not going to worry about this. Bear with me one second. I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to go back here because I do have some news to share with folks for a little bit here. I am going to be taking a sabbatical. This is my last show for this season. Taking a sabbatical for the next few months. I may have some guest hosts running the show for me through the Win-Win Women's Network. But if not, you'll see me back here again soon. And you can always find all of our previous shows on YouTube and at divorcetownusa.com. We have all that information. At Divorcetown USA, you are able to find a plethora of information from our experts there. We have a marketplace that has lots and lots of information. And Jeff, I believe your book is up there. If not, we'll be getting it up there.
Thank you.
In addition, there are lots of free articles and videos and audios to listen to. We have a free divorce roadmap that you can download at divorcetownusa.com that gives you more information on your options and the ways that you can go about divorce that you may not have considered. It's not always just lawyer up and duke it out. There are many other ways that you can come into the process that can be more amicable and peaceful and money saving and sanity saving as well. And at divorcemoneymatters.com, you can get my free divorce financial fitness kit. And this has a list of 50 must-ask questions when you're ready to hire an attorney, a working list, an Excel spreadsheet of all the documents you need to gather, and an ebook with more information there. And so I hope you'll avail yourself to that. In the meantime, please reach out to our professionals at Divorcetown USA for whatever divorcing needs you have. And if we don't have someone in your area, contact us and we'll be looking for someone to help you. So I want to thank you all for being here today. And I'm going to try one more time to share this outro, and away we go. So bear with me one second. I am just not getting cooperation today from my computer or my technology. And you know what? And I think that I just got it. So hang on here. And if I could get this bar to move, I could bring it up. Yay. All right. Okay, I'm coming back as soon as I find my way. This is live TV. What can you do?
Exactly.
Okay, stop share. And I need to stop the recording. Bye now. See you when I come back.